Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader Show. I'm Dwight Habermehl, your host, and I have a guest with us today that is very special to me, and it's Kristen, Kristen Habermehl, my wife. And I am so excited to be able to share this conversation and discussion with you because Kristen is a real woman of God. She's a real person of faith and a real person of character, and it's a privilege to be married to her. But I've also watched her live her life. 30 years we've been married, and 32 when you include dating years. And all through those years, I've watched you as a wife and a mom of our 5 children, and now as our children are grown, as a businesswoman, and you're involved in accessibility and training architects and engineers, and you're consulting governments and large business, both here in our province and around across Canada and even in other parts of the world, which is amazing how God has been so faithful. It really is. So I'm excited about this, and we're going to be talking about faith, basically, and the role that faith has played in our journey and played in your journey. And just tell us a little bit about where faith began for you.
Well, that could be a long story or a short story, as you know, and you know the whole story. But for the sake of those listening, I may as well go back right to the beginning and share the story that my dad passed away when I was a very young child. And it began a journey of faith before I even understood what faith was. And my mom was a very godly woman and very bravely raised myself and my 5-month-old brother, and as a single parent for over a decade before she found someone and remarried. And those were years of laying the most important foundations of faith that I would not appreciate for decades to come. But they definitely, that began the journey of watching God provide, right down to the pennies in the piggy bank that would meet the power bills or the groceries showing up when we didn't know where they came from. And my mom was very good at reminding me who the source of everything was, and it was always God. And so I think I had a unique and a very privileged childhood, even though we lived simply. I had a childhood that was very much established on faith and complete confidence that God was exactly who he said he was and that he would provide.
And your mom is an amazing woman. I have always really respected her. But she comes from a heritage of faith, which is an awesome thing when that transpires and happens, when faith is passed down through generations. And so it was formed and fostered in your home growing up. And how do you see faith interacting with everyday life as a mom? Like, if we were to reflect back into the child rearing days, in our journey, there were lots of seasons of incredible faith, of trusting God. I remember, as an example, coming out and being involved in a church plant together. And we did not have everything we needed financially.
We didn't have anything.
But we trusted God, and he was faithful. What was it like as a mom to have a husband out there? Because you stayed at home in that season. And I remember we would, divide up the cheese to make sure that...
and mix our skim powdered milk and count everything. Yep.
Now those were years where it seemed like we had to trust the Lord for every nickel and dime. What was it like as a mom to raise children, 5 of them, 2 boys, 3 girls, 2 years apart for most, in that season, in that environment?
Well, I can honestly say, and you know this, I know God has taken care of every need, but there were many times when we didn't know how needs were going to be met, and I don't remember feeling worried as much as wondering how a need would be met. But there were times of definitely trusting the Lord and praying and believing an answer would come, but not always seeing it as fast as we hoped it would come. And I think as a mom, it was a very rich time because little things were so special. And you're right, getting to be home with the kids when they were little was the finest thing in the world. And, by faith, we did walk out the unknowns, and we saw God meet every single need. Not always like we expected, and maybe not as bountifully as we might have hoped, but He was 100% faithful. And
there was never a meal missed.
Nope.
The mortgage payments were all made.
Yeah.
And the car got fixed when it had to be fixed.
Yep.
And we got from A to B.
Yep. And I think as a mom, and for you as a dad, we got to see God not just answer our prayers, but answer our kids' prayers. Yes. And I remember one of our kids really wanting a blueberry pie. And we literally did not have the money to go to the store and buy the blueberries for a blueberry pie. And this little one was so faith-filled, and they said, I'm going to pray for God to bring blueberries. And I will never forget the knock on our door the very next day. And somebody was cleaning out their freezer, and they brought over a bag of groceries that included a whole bag of frozen blueberries that led to a homemade blueberry pie that night. That was one of the most clear answers to a little child's prayer that I think I remember enjoying.
Yeah, it was an amazing season of really miraculous provision in so many situations. I remember the car breaking down when we were up in Cape Breton, and wondering where that money was going to come from, and finding in our mailbox a check that met that need as we interceded and prayed.
Yep.
And it was a season of incredible miracles, really, on many fronts. But it wasn't just about praying for provision and faith engaged in the aspect of provision. There was really circumstances that we felt in our spirit that we needed to see God change, that surrounded our home, even with neighbors. And it was amazing to watch those miracles. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. No, I can think of a lot of ways God moved. I came across early on a resource that was the power of a praying parent. And I remember going through those prayers and learning how to really, by faith, the verse from Lamentations that talks about pouring your heart out before the Lord, and the understanding how to pray for our kids, but for the situations that affected our kids in our home. And yeah, that was a really, really unique one. There was a prayer, Stormy O'Martin, her good old book, I think it was from the 80s or 90s, and she said, you need to pray and trust God that He will either change or remove a situation. And there was a significant, challenging situation with one of the neighbors, and it was, we just started praying, God, will you change or remove the situation with the neighbors, believing God could bring salvation and connection. And you know the story. One night, middle of the night, we don't even know why, they packed up their family, they moved away, and the house was up for sale. And one of my very closest lifelong friends ended up moving in and replacing the people that God moved out of the way.
Yeah,
miraculous.
Amazing situation. A gal that had been raised in a Pentecostal home and was not following the Lord at that time and season. But as we prayed and interceded, not only did she come to Christ, and come back into a relationship with Christ, but her husband also came to Christ, which is amazing, really. And watching on when the neighbors moved out on the opposite side, feeling like, Lord, we're giving out in so many places. Would you bless us with, Christian neighbors? And you kept praying about that. And there was a day when you felt like God answered your prayer. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was just a simple request from the Lord, and I kept making it. And
how long did you pray?
I don't remember now. It was months. I know that it was a consistent, Lord, would you please, replace again. We had, I guess, both sides that had challenges at different times with very rough scenes, as you know, very.
Well, we couldn't afford
difficult.
a lot, so it was
difficult things that weren't safe for our kids, and that was the concern, that there was activities going on that were not healthy for a family to be beside, and just ask them, Lord, would you please? It was the same thing: change or remove, and it was months. And then one day, I started to pray it during my quiet time. Lord, would you just change? And I felt so strongly the sense of the Spirit of it's done, and that was probably the spring, and we didn't meet anybody buying that house or see a change until the summer. But I just had a sense that something had transitioned in the heavenlies, and we again saw incredible connection and very special people that have become part of our lives moving in that situation.
And they've been very close friends as well for now 25 years.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Only God can answer prayers on both sides of your neighbors.
It's a good test.
Anyway, no, that's really, really good. And I remember one time, just how the Holy Spirit is involved when we are pressing in on a daily basis. And the thought keeps coming up as we're going along as, I remember we built a swing set in the backyard. And this is an application of faith. And being the kind of person that I am, my kids wanted a swing set. I'd build them the biggest swing set they could possibly get.
Biggest one in HRM.
And there was, they could go pretty high. And tell us about the experience and what happened.
So I think we probably had 3 kids at that point, and I was inside washing dishes. The baby would have been sleeping. And I could see one of our kids on the swing, and they loved to go as high could be, and faster was better. And there was such a quickening in my spirit that moment. I remember my hands in the soapy dishwater, and I could see them perfectly on the swings. And it was just a sense of pray for protection. I thought, okay, I can see them, but I'll pray. And it was not 60 seconds later that child was completely up high in the air. I'll never forget the view. It was horrific. And the chain snapped, and she went flying. And I did not know. I ran outside. I did not know if I was going to find a child breathing, completely broken. It was a huge fall. And she got up completely fine. I don't even remember a bruise from that event. And I still have the link of that broken swing set piece, because I know that God allowed his angels to catch that child. There is no way in the world that was a coincidence. And it was such a dramatic moment for me as a young mom, when we can't be everywhere our kids are. We can't, not when they're little, and certainly not when they're older. But entrusting them to the Lord, and then continuing to trust that he will provide and do what they need and take care of them. And that was a very real moment for me as a young mom.
Well, we're going to take a moment break, and we'll be right back with a continuation of this conversation, because they didn't stay little for too long, did they? They grew up, and faith actually was required to continue in that journey as they continued to grow. So we'll be back with a healthy Christian leader and our interview with Kristen Habermehl. Well, today's conversation was fantastic, but we're not finished yet. We'll be back in the next video with the same guest with more discussion about leader health. You know the drill. Subscribe and hit that bell. Would you join us for the next episode? You can find new episodes every week in video form on the Aaron Ministry YouTube page and in audio form as the Healthy Christian Leader Show wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leaders. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more resources and information on how to donate or to start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.